a future need for preppers? Hey everybody, this is Michael with Asymmetrical Preparedness. One of those things that we talk about a lot is SHTF, stuff hitting the fan. Or you can use a dirty word in the first place. And a lot of people tend to think of it as large event type stuff, because a large event is scary, and it is the event that we prepare for, I guess, the most. Even if SHTF can be small, it can be personal, it can be local, it could be national, it could be whatever. It could be worldwide. There's a lot of different scenarios out there, but one thing that we may be forced into eventually is something that I recommend, maybe, depending on your situation and the group of people that you have, you might want to think about doing now. Because it's always better to do something before you're forced into it. Just like skills, it's always better to learn what you need to survive. Survival skills, bushcraft skills, all those prepper related skills, it's better to learn them now than to just accumulate a bunch of gear, sit on it, and say, oh, I'll just learn everything when SHTF happens. Well, when that happens, you're going to have a lot of other things you need to do also. You are going to have a lot more demands placed upon your time. So, time will be limited, and things will inevitably be more difficult during a big event or even a smaller event. Anything that you would term an SHTF is going to be more difficult than regular everyday life. It's just the way it is. So there are situations we may be forced into. If it's a total and utter like collapse of society type thing, if it is a, an EMP sending us back to the 1800s, if it is a, maybe a foreign invasion, a large-scale war, large-scale conflict on U.S. soil, or financial collapse, or just somehow a collapse of society. What are we going to be forced into then? Well, people will be forced to form communities, to protect themselves, to watch out for themselves. So, why not do it now? Why not start doing that now? Prepper commune, prepper community, prepper compound, whatever you want to call it. I would say there's pluses and minuses. But I would say the minuses only exist if done improperly. If you do it properly, I really can only see pluses. There's negatives to everything, so I'm sure there are. But you guys have to be on the same page. That's one of the first things. There has to be bylaws set forth. There has to be agreements made. Everybody that enters into a situation like this needs to understand all the rules and regulations set forth by the group. And everybody that's going to be in the group, all adult members, I would say, sit down, hash it out. How are you going to go about doing this? How are you going to buy that 200, 500 acres, whatever it is? And is it just going to be that acreage? And maybe you're all in the deed, or one person's in the deed, whatever. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Or if each individual family is going to have their own property that they own. I like that way because I don't care for socialism. I also don't care for, if things go south, somebody kicking me off of my property, losing my house and everything I worked hard for. I want to be able to own my land. But within the parameters of your group, whatever that may be, you guys are going to have to decide. You're going to have to decide how it works, how to fund it, what the rules and regulations are, how it will be governed, because there has to be some form of governance. There has to be some rules, regulations, some way to enforce them, because to me, that's just the way it works. I mean, you can think of, some people like the whole idea of anarchy. That you might be able to figure out a way to make that work if every single person was very, very mindful of free will and not violating others' free will and being morally upstanding, honest, true, all these kind of things. But basically, in most societies, you have to have some form of rules and regulations to provide for the common defense. Is one reason why I advocate thinking about doing this maybe. I would love to do it with my group. I don't know if everybody's on board, but we're starting to talk about that. And there's a lot to figure out. There's a lot you need to hash out. A lot of sitting down, a lot of talking about things. How are things going to work? I like the idea of each person owning their own property. Some of the ideas I really like come from archaven.org, I think it is, the website. It's an intentional Christian prepper community type thing. And if they do it properly, I think that could be a really good thing. I think that you don't necessarily have to share the same faith. I think you would have to share either a faith or at least a common set of morals and values. You don't have to be faith-based. I am a man of faith. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't move onto a property with somebody that isn't of a particular faith or wasn't very much into faith or religion in general. To me, it matters more about their moral character, their work ethic, their willingness to learn, their willingness to do the hard things, their willingness to lead and to follow. That's another thing. You would have to have leaders and followers. And you may come into a situation like me. I would probably have a leadership role somewhere revolving around security. But then again, in all other roles, I would probably be a follower. When I'm in the garden, there are people better gardeners than me. So I would be a follower then. I would do what the master gardener type people tell me. Medical. I know medical, but I'm not an AMT. I'm not a nurse. I would follow the advice of one of our doctors or nurses that we have, and thus I would be a follower. So we need to humble ourselves, have the attitude of humility. But also be ready, willing to step into roles of leadership at the same time. And I think that this kind of stuff will be eventually forced upon us. We're going to be forced to do this anyway. So why not be proactive, get into it now, and hash out all this stuff? It's much easier to do it now than trying to hash out all this stuff while you're doing it. You're gathering, and then you're like, okay, we're living here and stuff like that. We're doing the things. We're setting this. We're doing this. We're making the gardens. We're setting security. We're foraging. We're building buildings. We're setting up, we're digging outhouse holes. We're setting up sanitation. We're organizing all this stuff. And while you're doing all that stuff, you got to find time to sit down and hash out all the rules and regulations and stuff. Yeah, you could probably do it, but man, that would be difficult. I like the idea also of having like a council of all families. One adult member per family would be a member of the council. Men, women, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I like the equality thing. We are not the same. We don't have the same abilities and talents, but we are equal as far as worth and value to humanity. Treat each other with respect. That's very important in any kind of relationship, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, friends, team, group, mag, tribe, neighbors, all this stuff. Treat others with respect. But yes, I would highly advocate that at least, even if you don't do it, as far as going someplace, buying land and all that stuff like that, at least get with your group. Hopefully you have a group. If you don't, please do that first. That is vital, 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 vital. Please get it, excuse me, please form a group. And then hash out, how would you run these things? Now, don't wait. Have these conversations now. Write it all out in writing. And when you get done with all of it, go back over it and make sure that everybody still agrees. And then whenever you have it all finally hashed out, everything you can possibly think of that every single person brainstorms and comes up with, all the stipulations, then make sure you have every single adult sign the document, agreeing to it. And then if anybody new comes into the group, they need to read it and sign it also. And if they're not okay with something, well, then maybe you can reconvene and see if people are willing to change the things that they're not okay with. But odds are, since you already hashed through it all, they pretty much have to agree, or bye-bye, see ya, those kind of things. But anyway, hash it out now. I know there's a lot of stuff to do now as preppers, but I think it's vitally important. There's a lot of other stuff that goes along with it. I mean, there's comm plans, there's security plans, there's what to do if, what to do when, all these eventualities. Those would be all part of your SOPs. So you'd kind of have like your bylaws, which would be like your general rules and regulations, and you have your SOPs or standard operating procedures. How do you do what, when, who's in charge of what, how watch rotations work, how do all the things work together. Hash it out now, please. It's important to do that now, even if you don't actually do it now, because we will eventually be forced to do it, I believe. So the more we can do now, the better off we are. But anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse and continue dragging this on. It's a lot of stuff you're going to have to think about. You're going to have to hash out with the people around you. Even if you don't have a group, say you only have like your family, well, write it all out now. Act like you have a group. Accept anybody's input, even older children. You don't have to sign it, but at least get it all written out so you have a baseline. So if you're forced into the situation and others show up, which they will, if you survive long enough, then go over it, fine-tune it and stuff like that. At least you have a start. At least you have a basis. So even if you're alone, even if you're just by yourself, one single individual, do it. Write it out. Because then, at least, like I said, others can look at it, you can modify it, but at least you got a baseline. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. If you could please subscribe, I would really appreciate it. It really helps the channel out. Also, the thumbs up helps. The comments help. Sharing the videos help. Ringing the notification bell for all that, definitely that helps. Also, all these things, little things help with the algorithm. And that's very important because the algorithm doesn't like you and doesn't like me. So we need to stand together as a community and help each other out. I love you guys. Have a wonderful day. And blessings to you and yours.